So Craig, can you tell us what Otis Gold is primarily focused on at this time?
Sure. We're developing gold projects in the state of Idaho. We're focused on something called the Kilgore Gold Project. It produced historically in the 1930s. Fast forward to the late 80s, early 90s, a couple of large majors came out and started to develop and drill for the open pit heap leach potential at Kilgore. The main one that was out there is a company called Agnico Mines. They were actually going to put Kilgore into production in the period from 1993 to 1996 in a $350 gold environment. They had developed a small pit, a 45,000 ounce a year mining scenario. The price of gold dropped precipitously in the mid-90s, and they stepped away from the project, which allowed us to eventually step in. And we now have 100% ownership interest in the Kilgore project. It's a 9,000 acre project. There's no royalties on it. About an 820,000 ounce gold resource on it today at a grade of about 0.6 grams per ton. And we've been stepping out underneath our deposit at depth, and we've been achieving grades and thicknesses in our intercepts that are much higher than the existing resource on the project. So we see some nice potential to grow the size of the deposit and increase the grade.
Why is now a great entry point for investors to look at Otis Gold?
Well, we're sitting with 160 million shares out and trading at about 30 cents. It's a valuation of about $50 million. We've got a 1 million ounce resource. And I think right now, from a gold investment perspective, gold has been trading in a sideways pattern for the last couple of years. I think it's ready to break out. We all know what's going on globally. It hasn't resulted in a big jump in the price of gold, but I think that's on the horizon. And as a result of that, I think starting to take a position in a company like Otis makes a lot of sense, particularly given the fact that we have capital, we're fully funded, we're running pretty large exploration programs. We've got significant amounts of news flow in front of us in terms of drill results. We're significantly expanding our permitting. And probably something we haven't mentioned, and it's probably one of the most compelling things from an investor perspective, is that this year, so in February of 2017, a company called Agnico Eagle Mines put $5 million into our company at a price of 35 cents a share. And again, we're trading at 30 cents a share. So we get some pretty bright minds who are supporting our company. And I think that alone creates a very compelling story from an investor point of view.
So it's important to talk about your management team. So let's give some names and their background.
Sure. Well, but the two guys who I think you're really investing with, John Carden and Mitch Bernardi, they're the two geologists that are running the technical team at Otis. They've got a long history in developing gold projects in the western U.S. Probably most importantly, they were both senior geologists with a company called Agnico Mines, which, as I mentioned, were a prior operator out of Kilgore. So they have a long history with the project. John Carden, for instance, when he was at Agnico, he was the director of U.S. exploration. He's got gold deposits to his credit. The Lanefoot deposit was the highest grade, lowest cost producer in the history of Agnico. So very credible exploration team. Just as importantly, I've got a very supportive board of directors, and they're actively involved in our company. One of our key directors is Dr. Roger Norwich. Roger was a founder of a company called Rio Alto. Rio Alto, they built that up and sold it to Tahoe Resources for about $1.1 billion. And some of the investors that supported him in the Tahoe Resources deal have now invested in our company. More recently, a guy by the name of Don Poirier has joined our board of directors. He most recently was a vice president of corporate development for an Idaho-based company called Hecla Mines. And he's a geologist, very strong understanding of the market, again, a very active director, and gives a lot of credibility to the company from a board perspective. And he's been very valuable to me in terms of providing advice and guidance to me as we continue to grow out the company.
Great. Now lastly, let's talk about the investor sentiment here at this New Orleans conference. What are you generally feeling from the people that are here?
Well, I think we're still seeing a lot of people on the sidelines right now. There's a lot more energy around this conference this year than there was last year, but people are soaking up a lot of information right now. I think everyone generally feels that the junior mining market is ready to go. They're excited about some of the stories that have been running, so they've had some exploration success. So they're looking at starting to get their feet wet and start getting some financial exposure to the sector, but it's not. They're not on the edge of the seat waiting to write checks.
It's just a matter
but it's
of
close.
time.
Absolutely.
Right.
We're feeling really good about some of the folks that have been coming by our booth.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Craig, for your insight.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time.